Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. We do a show every day on the platform called iOS. It's only sport. That's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? Well, it should be. It's only sport. The platform broadcasts live 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. You've got to download the app, listen via the web if you so wish, subscribe to Platform Plus, and then you can go back and listen to all 9 hours at your own listening leisure and pleasure. We just do sport, though, silly old sport, every afternoon and condense the 3 hours into this highlights package for you, bite-sized chunks of the show. Of course, we want you to listen to the whole thing live if you can, but if you can't, next best thing is, what are we talking about? Well, Test cricket today at the Basin Reserve. Something about it, isn't it? Us versus Australia. First ball bowled. A little bit of cloudy skies, around 6 in the slip cordon. We won the toss. That was absolutely essential, I think. Test cricket on your podcast. Greg Martin, as always, opens the batting on Thursdays on our show. Plenty to talk about, including that cricket, of course. Super Rugby, the Magic Round in Melbourne this weekend. His Reds got off to a flying start against the Tars last weekend. And the Vegas Round kicking off the NRL. More on that with Brad Walter on the ground in Vegas for us. What kind of crowd are they expecting in the double header? And it's Sunday, New Zealand time, Sunday afternoon. Even more league. Jason Costo Costigan sticks the big chin out. Called the Warriors for over a decade, Costo. Last year did his 1 through 17 predictions for us. Out of the top 8, only a 50% record. He only got 4 of those right. He does it again. Who's going to win the minor premiership and where are the Warriors going to finish? You're going to find that out in the podcast. And the Breakers taking care of business. Plus, Parker Jackson Cartwright, a little over emotive at the end. Well, the guy that he was serving it up to on the sideline, who was part of the ANBL commentary team, decided that he would actually front the media today and say, hey, it wasn't all that bad. We got all of that to do. But as always, we start the same way every single day. That's tablets in hand, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. This is how utter nonsensical rest and rotation is for our All Blacks players. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
New Zealand rugby, your rest and rotation is an absolute joke. Never better demonstrated than with the news yesterday that Rieko Ioane and Finlay Christie won't play for the Blues versus Highlanders tomorrow night. Why? Because this is just laughable. They're on All Black rest. All Black rest is the official reason. Oh, please. These guys were both at the Rugby World Cup playing for the All Blacks. You know that. Rieko played all the main matches, only the main matches. Christie came on as a sub. In the 3 knockout matches, he would have been lucky to play 1/2 of a rugby match in total. And that was back in late October, 4 months ago. 4 months! How on earth does he need a rest? From what exactly? He hasn't been playing. So what, is he resting from training? From going to the gym? It really is utter nonsense. Surely in his first year in charge as All Black coach, Scott Robertson wants to see these guys play. Surely. The halfback spot will be one of the most highly contested on offer for this year's All Blacks. There's no Aaron Smith. So who is it? Christie and Roygaard are the top 2 contenders. If you're Scott Robertson, wouldn't you be saying, let them play, let them go head-to-head in Super Rugby, let me see them? How do you pick your new All Black halfback when he's only played half the Super Rugby games? And you've got to remember, neither of these guys are established All Blacks in that position. And then you add to that the fact that Magic Round, Blues Highlanders, is the opening game. Here's a sport, rugby, struggling like all hell in Australia to make any sort of an impact. Mostly zero. We know that. The Melbourne Rebels are in the hole for $20+ million. They put all of their players on contracts that end as soon as the comp ends. It has made no impact at all in Melbourne, rugby as a sport. And here you are, putting on what's meant to be a show, a showcase of the comp, and the New Zealand sides don't send their big stars because they're on All Black rest. You can't write comedy like this. It's not a World Cup year, you morons. So what exactly are they being rested for and rested from? 4 months, people. 4 months since Rieko Ioane or Finlay Christie played a test match or part of a test match. That's a third of a year. A third of the year that they don't actually play. Can you imagine any other sport in the world which would tolerate this in their top players? Can you imagine Andrew Webster telling Warriors fans that Adam Whanua-Blake won't be playing round 2 versus the Storm because he's on playoff rest? That's how ridiculous this rugby rule is. And if you've bought into it, if you're supportive of New Zealand rugby's view on this, then quite clearly you've been brainwashed by the narrative that you've been told. You've been told it so many times and for so long that our players need rest that you've started believing it. Not me. Not ever, not never. It is a total farce. It is utter nonsense. It is complete BS.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Well, of course, Martin, the talk is all about cricket at the moment with the Black Caps in Australia underway and day 1 of the first test at the Basin Reserve. It was looking a little bit pedestrian. Australia was slowly working towards a total. I don't know if we'll call it nice. But we got a wicket.
Yep.
It was a little while ago
Stephen
now.
Smith.
Stephen Smith. Got Stephen. I thought it was just Steve.
He's matured and changed since Sandpaper Gate, Lachlan.
Yeah, Stephen. Stephen Smith. We'll call him that from now on. Stephen Smith. Gone for 31. Matt Henry with the wicket. He was caught by Tom Blundell. Now at the crease, Usman Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne. Marnus Labuschagne, by the way, has 2 tons against us. I think in Test cricket both came in that series over in Australia where we just got absolutely thwacked. Australia currently 62 for 1 at lunch. 27 overs gone. Matt Henry with the only wicket. No one's really been that expensive with the ball. Maybe Scott Kugelheim. No maidens, no wickets, given up 16 runs and only 3 overs bowled. His economy's 5.33. I mean, that's not bad at all. I mean, I'm just being picky here. Speaking of Scott Kugelheim, he has been recalled and is playing this match.
It's kind of predicted yesterday, wasn't it? 4 seamers. Plus, look, we've got a couple of part-time spinners in Ration and Glenn Phillips. We're sweet. We're good.
How do you feel about Scott Kugelheim playing?
Look, we've had this argument many, many times before, mate. I feel a bit icky about it, to be perfectly honest. But, at the same time, justice is justice, I suppose. And, I look, every time I think about it and I read the court transcript, I don't feel great about it. I wish New Zealand cricket moved in another direction.
Yes, me too. Speaking of cricket and Australia, their captain Pat Cummins, solid panel Pat, has sung the praises of retiring New Zealand bowler Neil Wagner, saying he has huge admiration for what Wagner has achieved. This is what Cummins had to say. Obviously, he was part of the squad, so we thought he was in line to play. Whether he was in the final 11 or not, we obviously weren't too sure. There's been a bit of short ball work in the nets from all of us knowing that his normal go-to is that, so we've had to shift a few of our plans. He's been a wonderful competitor whenever we've played him over the years. Australian NBL, a couple of games on last night. I won't lie. Now, the Breakers are playing at halftime. I went to bed. I saw the score. They were down by 9, I think. I was just like, you know what? No, I don't need to sit here and watch us lose. And I want to have a good night's sleep. I did have a good sleep. My sleep was interrupted by my flatmate chanting and cheering at the fact that the Breakers came back and won.
A great win, mate. And look, I started the show by saying it was a fantastic result, the best they played all year. Under those circumstances, with the injuries, going there to their place and winning that game.
Agreed. 83-76 the final score. The Breakers outscoring the Kings 22-13 in the third quarter and 23-16 in the fourth. That is a 16-point turnaround from their halftime deficit. In terms of the best performers, there was one who stood out. Parker Jackson Cartwright, third in MVP voting, was named in the All-NBL first team. He scored 34 points, played 37 minutes. Zylan Cheatham also added 18 points, 11 for Will McDowell White. There was another NBL game on, and it was the Illawarra Hawks and the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. The Jack Jumpers winning, so it means the Hawks will now play the Breakers. The winner of that goes through to the semi-finals. The other semi-final series involving Perth and Tasmania is set. The winner of Hawks Breakers plays Melbourne, the top seed.
Yeah, 3-game series.
So it's a tough slog for the Breakers
that's what
to get
happens
to the
when you finish
semi-finals.
sixth, mate.
Yeah, when you have more losses than wins.
There you go.
FA Cup this morning, 4 really good games, at least in terms of the quality of the teams playing. Well, one of them in Chelsea. You know, when you see Chelsea, you think, oh, here's a big club playing. No, not really. They're not that good at the moment. But they did win today, Chelsea. They beat Leeds 3-2. Man United beating Nottingham Forest 1-0. Wolves beating Brighton 1-0. Liverpool beating Southampton 3-0. In terms of the quarterfinals, they are now set. Man City Newcastle is one. Chelsea Leicester another. Wolves Coventry the third of those four. The other one,
the blockbuster,
Manchester United Liverpool.
Yeah,
at Old Trafford as well.
Who doesn't want that time?
You.
Yeah,
you don't want
every
that
Man United
time.
fan,
Yeah.
to be truthful.
Christian Horner. Actually, this is actually quite a good football story. The Matildas, the Australian national women's team, have qualified for the Paris Olympic Games. Now, we thought when we beat, Solomon Islands 11-0 in a match, Australia have won up to that. They've beaten Uzbekistan. Now, this is on aggregate, so it's across 2 leagues. 13-0.
Yeah, it's just fast.
The second of those leagues was a 10-0 win.
Yeah, it's fast.
It's a fast. Christian Horner, the Red Bull boss, he will remain the boss of the F1 team, the defending Constructors' Champions. Of course, they have Max Verstappen, the best driver in the field at the moment. He's won 3 straight titles. He will remain the team's boss after he had been cleared of alleged misconduct toward a female employee. And finally, a social media influencer is suing Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill over an alleged incident that happened at the NFL Stars' South Florida home last summer. In a lawsuit that Sophie Hall's attorneys filed in Broward County Circuit Court on February 23rd, the influencer claims, Sophie Hall, that is the influencer by the way, she claims that Hill forcefully and purposefully shoved her while the two were participating in a football drill at a Southwest Ranchers mansion. So this is like a social football game that I play on Tuesday nights, and a girl gets annoyed because I pushed her a little hard when I was tackling her. Well, I don't know, maybe don't play sport. There's also a story about TJ Perenara on Stuff. So your prediction that there's going to be stories about TJ Perenara this season, there is one up. It's not quite about the All Blacks, it's just talking about his Hurricanes return, when that's happening. He has travelled over with the Hurricanes to Melbourne, but I am just looking forward to that first Perenara story coming out saying he's in line for the All Blacks, he's back in form. That's what's making news, Marto.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Greg Martin, former Wallaby fullback. He co-hosts the Triple M Breakfast Show in Brisbane. Joins us every single Thursday. Not really to talk about the cricket because, it's better we talk about the rugby. He's a Reds fan. He used to play for the Reds. They got off to a flyer in Super Rugby. The Magic Round in Melbourne. Meanwhile, of course, the NRL are in Vegas. Melbourne, Vegas. Hey, but a Magic Round without a couple of the best All Blacks playing because they're rested for All Black duty? How nonsensical is that? Greg Martin. I was driving home last night. We have got the Magic Round opening in Melbourne. Trying to get some hype and hoopla for Super Rugby. The kickoff game is the Blues versus the Highlanders. The lead item on the sports news as I was going home on another radio station, Rico Ioane and Finlay Christie won't be playing that game because they are on, quote, All Blacks rest. Your thoughts?
Where do we start? Right, I've heard your spray. Yes, it's completely ridiculous. We don't do this because what do we need a rest from? We didn't finish very late in the World Cup. We've had a good rest. Mate, completely nonsensical. As you say, there's no World Cup. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to play rugby because what you get paid for is to entertain people. Part 1, yes, your All Black rule is stupid. Part 2, am I being brought on to apologise for Melbourne because I'll do it before the games start? I'm sorry. I'm sorry you've all had to come to Melbourne for a Magic Round or Super Round. What are they calling it?
Magic Round.
Gather Round? Magic Round?
Gather Round.
Oh, bloody hell. Mate, did you see how many people? So what you want, wouldn't you think if your football team was in the hole for $20 million and they were doing it tough and the players have promised, we're going to put that all out of our minds and we're going to play for you, the fans. You turn up.
Yep.
No one turned up last weekend. No one turned up. How many you reckon are going to be there? All right, I'll tell you how many are going to be there. 0 Australians. They're all going to be Kiwis who are supporting their teams. They're going to go, oh, Fue, bro. Listen, look, the Crusaders are playing. I'm from Christchurch. I'll go along. All the Kiwis in Melbourne, that will be the only people there at the ground. This Magic Round is stupid, and I don't have to make an apology to anybody.
So when it comes to the All Blacks, though, these guys, Finlay Christie, played a bit part role in the quarter of the semi in the final. That was 4 months ago. So we don't have a halfback at the moment. If you're Scott Robertson, aren't you banging down Mark Robinson's door and saying, listen, I need to pick an All Black side. I need these guys playing because that's how I actually get to decide. What are you telling us, that these guys are already All Blacks in the team already, are they, without having to play Super Rugby? Mate, the World Cup's not for another 4 friggin' years. There's no excuse for this, is there?
Well, I'm not supposed to have the answer either, and you don't. We're asking the questions rather than having the answers. But quite simply, this year, always, the year after the World Cup, is the year when you build your depth. Is that what they're saying? And they're going, well, we're going to give lots of other people a go, so then we'll build our depth in our All Black squad and then narrow it down as the next World Cup gets nearer. It's the most stupid thing. We tried it for 1 year and went, oh, we don't have enough players to have rest players, so we won't do it. So whereas you've at least got the factory that's always open. But it's completely stupid.
Mate, it's cheating the fans, and this is Mark Robinson, the CEO who's over in World Rugby at the moment, flew first class over there to attend a meeting, and he's talking about fan-centric. I'm going to play you, and fan engagement, and then our best players don't play in an environment where we're trying to get people interested in it. This was him before he left. This was on Sky Sports The Breakdown. It's about 20 seconds. Have a listen to this. He said it was the most important series of meetings facing rugby ever, and this is what's going to come out of those meetings.
Talk about how we can be more nimble and agile in this space. I think we are really hoping we get into the forum and we just create the best possible forum for decision making. So, I don't want to sit here and promise what the outcomes are going to be here, but we need to make sure we have the right information, right people in the room, the right insights, right level of, the balance of, fan focus and what the fans want and player safety, for instance. And then we come out of there with a really unified approach to move quickly to address some of the things we're talking about.
We're going to go to a meeting to make sure everyone in the meeting is the right people to have at the meeting. There you go, Greg.
Wow. What about being nimble in this space? If he was selling real estate, you'd go, listen, he is dodgy. But oh, mate, what is going on there? That was just nonsense. That wasn't even English.
No, it was. You sit there and honestly, and John Kerwin did that interview, right? And he's sitting there nodding his head at this. And I looked at the TV while I was watching it going, JK, just say it to him, mate. I don't understand a word you've just said. What do you mean by all of that?
Oh, God. Oh, mate, at least you've got people watching the game. We've got nonsense like that and people don't watch the game.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Martin, 18 degrees, light southerly blowing at the basin, says Chris, who's there. Another one says Moroccan chicken, usually called road call. No, I love Moroccan chicken. Don't you love Moroccan chicken, Lachlan?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything ethnic sounding like?
Anything free.
Anything free? Yeah.
5 separate sporting topics, 60 seconds on each, roughly, there or thereabouts, when the bell reminds us. On we go to the next topic. We've got a lot to talk about. How are we doing at the Basin so far? Like your opinion, because you don't really like cricket or follow cricket. But
I like it.
Well, it's on in front of you, mate. Follow it then and like it if that's the case, mate.
I'm still a child when it comes to knowing the game well. I only started following it a couple of years ago.
Do you believe in the Vegas hype for the NRL round? And how many people are going to turn up in the stands for the doubleheader? Who wins those 2 games, Manly Souths and Brisbane Roosters? Formula One. Season starts in Bahrain this weekend. Rico and Christie are on All Black West. Good God. Just say that out loud, people. Mark Robinson won't come on this program. We bumped into each other outside of Paris. And he said to me that, I don't listen. The first thing he said, I don't listen to your show, but I hear you, you're giving it to me. I said, hi, Mark, would you like to sit down and have a glass of wine? No. I'll come on your show. Well, we've tried several times, and there's always a convenient excuse why he won't. But this is just insanity now, isn't it? All Blacks resting when the season is only just starting. Parker Jackson at Cartwright and the spray we'll talk about. Let's kick it off, though, with the cricket. 66 for 2, I think it is at the moment. Just let me check that. There's a replay going on at the moment. Haven't we lost a wicket? I hope that's not the case. Refresh. Come on. Don't take all bloody day. 72 for 2. So they're not scoring at a clip, Lachlan, which is great. I think that if we can keep them anywhere around 300 or under for the first innings, that's a victory for us. That doesn't mean we're going to chase that and get better than that, but we can't let them get 400 or 500 in the first innings, or else we're not winning this test.
Agreed.
So our best bet is to try and keep them 300 or lower, bowl them out in the 200s, and then we've got a real good chance. Because whatever we're doing with the ball on this,
they can do probably better.
A lot better.
Yeah. So 72 through 35 overs isn't half bad, is it, for us?
For us.
Yeah.
But this isn't Baz ball.
No, but the fact is, if they can get to about if they end up batting the whole day, they get to about, I don't know, between 180 and 200, but they still have about 6 or 7 wickets in hand.
Yeah, that ain't good.
That's not good.
No, that ain't good either.
So you need to get many wickets, I would think.
Okay, all
Which
right.
sounds stupid. I mean, of course you want to take wickets. It's a dumb thing to
Okay,
say.
I just think we're doing okay at the moment, okay? Do you believe in the Vegas hype
No.
for the opening round?
No.
And once again, it's one of those things where, of course, the NRL have paid, and we got a guy on soon, Brad Walter from NRL.com. They've paid a whole lot of journalists to go over there. It's like Jacinda packing the plane full of her political journalism cronies. And what are they going to do apart from write cheese stories and PR fluff stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, carve through all of that. And I don't mind all of that because I'm intelligent enough and I've worked long enough in this business to know that that's what those people are paid to do, right? No one is going to get over there on that junket and write, look, to be honest, Vegas couldn't give a shite about this. They've given away a whole lot of tickets. This is just a freebie and a whole lot of players are going to go out and let's hope they don't get arrested afterwards. Because that probably is closer to the truth, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
But I don't begrudge it. Because it's the NRL opening bloody round and I'm looking forward to it.
I know, but I have a bit of an issue if they keep doing this Vegas thing for a few more years. Because aren't they going to keep going there for 5 years or
Well,
something?
we'll ask Brad about that. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, we've just got to get on it and be part of it. And somehow convince dear leaders to send us to Vegas like he did to Paris, mate. That's what I think about that.
I
We're
know,
media tossers, mate. We need to be in the toss pit. Yes.
But I'm just like, it's all fun and well and fine, but the thing that always frustrates me with these things is the idea that the NRL thinks that this is the start of getting a foothold in the
It's
US.
not,
and
mate.
if you're going to keep going there for another 2 or 3 or 4
Who
years.
believes that? Does Peter V'landys actually believe that?
No,
Come on.
I don't think so.
Costo, you
But
don't
then
believe
what's
that?
the
We'll talk to you in
benefit?
a-
Why are you doing it?
Because, in this day and age where people have so much consumer choice, what they think is that they think they've just go, oh, look at that big shiny thing over there. Oh, look at that big shiny. They need a big shiny thing. Whereas I don't think the NRL does need a big shiny thing to look
No.
at. The NRL is its own big shiny
You're
thing.
killing it in your own backyard.
I think it's a waste of money, quite frankly.
Yes.
But, it's the kind of trip that nobody's going to turn down. But in
No.
terms of actually making it in the States, forget it.
I just hate the coverage.
Stop
I
it,
hate the
mate.
stories coming out. You've got a video of Rob Gronkowski going nuts over NRL highlights. Jason Saab kills it on US television. Just
Stop it, mate. It's just stop it.
Not
It's like
interested.
Jacinda being over there telling the world on a chat show that she'd solved gun crime in this
Yeah, and
country.
her
okay?
going on, talking to Letterman or Stephen
Let's
Colbert.
just
It's
stop
like,
it, mate. I mean, stop it. If you're so
shut
brainless that you absorb
Well,
this
Jacinda
and believe it,
Ardern's
well-
got a promotion. Jacinda Ardern's got with Joe Biden. Yeah, for 5 minutes before he talks to K-pop.
Yeah, before he talked to K-pop, a Korean band. He didn't even know who she was, mate. Anyway, Manly versus South. Who you got? I'm going to ask you
Souths.
this later on.
I don't know. I think
Well, here we go.
I think that one's a bit of a toss of the coin, but I say Souths.
I'm going Manly. Brisbane versus Roosters.
I'm Broncos, obviously.
Come on, Roosters for the premiership, mate.
No.
Costo's corner in an hour, people. He will go through 1 through 17 for us. F1 season in Bahrain.
No.
That's it. I mean, that's all we need to say. Oh, guess who's going to win that race? I mean, if I was a bookmaker, I wouldn't even put $1 on this. I wouldn't even give you your money back for it, right? No. We all know what...
You get 70 cents on your $1 bet.
If you put it in a multi,
Yeah,
you get...
you actually lose money.
You lose money, yeah.
yeah.
Rico and Christie are on All Blacks rest, and I started the show with this, mate. Now, I'm not blaming the players for this, unless the players are actually quite happy with this, but I would hope the players actually want to play, because if they don't
Hope
want to...
so.
But how silly is this? When you look at the fact, Lachlan, it's 4 months since Christie played. 4 months. And he only played barely 5 minutes of those knockout matches. So what's he resting from? It's 5 months since the guy played.
Yeah.
How can you rest, mate?
But like, hey, it's the start of another World Cup cycle. So if this was last year, not that I agreed with it, but I could understand the thought process. We want to preserve our players and make sure that they're not getting injured for the World Cup. The stupid thing was the likes of Billy Harmon weren't playing in Super Rugby last year. It was an outside chance for the All Blacks.
Tyrell Lomax just about lost his leg at the World Cup. Injuries happen.
Just before the World Cup. Yeah, and we had
During
injuries.
a game,
we had injuries
remember, he got his leg
Reece was
sliced.
preserved and he
That's
still
it.
got injured. So I get it in a World Cup. But in a year where you've got a new coach who's sitting there going, I want to pick my All Blacks squad and I want to pick guys naturally who are in form. You don't want, a bunch of scrubs representing the All Blacks. You want the best players, right? And how do we pick our All Blacks squads? Super Rugby, because that's what we use.
That's the only barometer we have is how well you play in Super Rugby.
Yeah.
There is no other barometer, mate.
And so if guys aren't playing, how the hell do you know who your best players are? Now, if you're going to sit there and say, if you're NZ Rugby, the PA or whatever, you go, oh, well, we know that Finlay Christie's one of our best halfbacks, so naturally he's got to be in the squad. Well, what if he's Pup? What if there's another halfback who's actually really good who should be in there instead?
He gets outplayed in games this year?
Yeah.
What's he goes over there against the Highlanders, and that guy who played bloody well last week, I can't remember what his name was.
Yeah, I can't either. What was it? Oh, Fakatava.
No, was it him?
Folau Fakatava? He's the Highlanders halfback.
No, I thought it was the other guy that came on and threw that brilliant pass for that try at the end.
Can't remember.
But anyway, that's what rugby does to you these days. But who's to say? And who's to say that Rieko Ioane is actually the best centre in New Zealand? Is there another guy out there that can pass the ball and break a tackle? Because he doesn't do either of those that well or regularly and didn't do them at the World Cup. He has flashes of the guy that we all think he is.
Well, there's a bloke at the Crusaders who ideally should not be at the Crusaders. He'd still be in Moana Pacifica. But Levi O'Moore was probably the best centre in the country last year.
So, I mean...
What about him? If he doesn't get picked up by, I don't know if he's Samoan or Tongan, apologies, but if he doesn't get picked up, if we manage to snag him, what if he ends up being the best? It's just stupid.
It's just nuts.
The idea that you pick your best players for the All Blacks squad, but you're doing it based off them not playing.
No, you're doing it off them playing last year in bits and pieces for the All Blacks.
And their gym work this year. That's what you're basing it off.
Finally, Parker Jackson Cartwright, massive effort last night, but his reaction afterwards, before we're going to play you now, ladies and gentlemen, Derek Rucker. The guy, he goes over there you might have heard this in the news at 2 o'clock. Derek Rucker, he goes over there courtside. This guy had written a list of the best 20 players in the league and had ranked them 7 or something. He goes over there, gives him a bit of a spray. Are you happy with that or not?
Yeah, I don't care. It's fine.
As long as Rucker's happy with it, I'm okay.
Well, a couple of things. One, as long as
it's not nasty verbal.
Yeah, as long as
it
doesn't cross the line. There isn't some really personal stuff said, or they don't actually get into fisticuffs. Obviously, if that's what happens, then I have a problem. If it's him putting up 34 points in a playoff game and then going over and saying, "Yeah, no, am I 7th? Look at that! I just beat the defending champs and whatnot, put up all these numbers." Like, I like that. I like guys playing with an edge and a bit of motivation. And behind the scenes, I don't think he hates him.
No.
I think if Parker Jackson Cartwright is a smart guy, he's just kind of doing his job and he's kind of got his own idea.
He's got
around
an opinion
this.
about it. What I love as well about this, before we play the Derek Rucker clip, people, is that every time you ever hear a sports person say, "Oh, I don't read the social media, I'm not interested in their opinions," that means that person is obsessed with it. That means that person wakes up in the morning and the first thing they do is check their social media numbers and what people are saying about them.
LeBron James said this many, many years ago that his biggest rival was Skip Bayless.
There you go.
ESPN host,
okay.
who's now with Fox Sports.
There you go. Okay, so
because Skip Bayless used to slag LeBron, and still does. Doesn't like him. And LeBron's always gone on and said that his nemesis is Skip Bayless. He said it many years ago.
They've all got egos. Breakers basketball. You save your best to last. You play your best when it matters most. A couple of great cliches there. Hey, truth born though last night. A rematch of last year's final series. And the Breakers, down 9, half-time. Brilliant third quarter and pulled away courtesy of Parker Jackson Cartwright, who then, after the game, went and had words with one of the Australian commentary team, not happy with the fact that guy had rated him only the 7th best player in the comp this year. So really competitive on the court and a little bit of spray going on off the court. Dillon Boucher, he never shirked from that either, did he? 3-time winner with the Breakers, legendary number 24, retired by that club, Dillon. That was a real case of saving the very best for last, wasn't it? Was that the best the Breakers played all season?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, Parker Jackson Cartwright, man, what an import. I mean, he has carried this team all year and no different in this game. He was just absolutely outstanding, and anytime they needed a bucket, he stepped up.
Well, and that big three-pointer at the end to silence the crowd. Man, full of emotion there, Dillon. You would have loved that.
Oh, I tell you what, he's playing with the chip on his shoulder, and players are dangerous like that when they've got a chip on their shoulder and a point to prove to people. And I saw him go up to the commentary team and have words, and I'm not sure what was said, but obviously Derek Rucker was in the commentary team and he had him as the 7th ranked best player in the league, and I'd say he was probably saying, I'm the number one, and this is the reason why.
Yeah, look, and I don't mind a bit of that actually, as long as that, as long as it's not nasty, and as long as, I saw the other players kind of pulling him away in that. But, look, people get motivated by all kinds of things. And in basketball, the Black Jesus himself, Michael Jordan, was motivated by all kinds of demons that he imagined, didn't he? So if a guy's got something that actually is bugging him like that, as long as he plays like that, well then, who are we to argue?
Yeah, I mean, I think always when you're playing for a New Zealand team in Australian competition, there's always a chip on your shoulder. You always feel like the chips are against you. You've got further to travel. You always feel like you're on the wrong side of the referees. So there's always that element going in, and I think he's bringing that dog to the team that they need. He's a competitor. Whatever motivates him to play like that, he'll keep drawing on that for every game going forward.
Dillon, it was only 6 weeks ago that they smacked up the Breakers' worst loss of the season. How do you turn that around in that short period of time?
Yeah, I think anyone who watched the game, they did an interview with Modi during the game, and Modi said he felt like they'd showed their cards early in the game they played, and so they'd made some adjustments to how they were going to guard the Breakers, and they'd pretty much showed their hand. And and at the time they played the interview during the game, Sydney had the upper hand, and it made kind of Modi look a bit silly, but I'll tell you what, the turnaround after that point of him even just talking showed that he made the adjustments and the Sydney coach didn't. And, the adjustments they made definitely played to the Breakers' hands.
Yeah, well, what did they do differently then? Coming at, 11-point deficit, I think it was at half-time.
Yeah, I really liked the zone. I mean, Sydney went and dropped into a zone defence, and, the offence that they were getting throughout the game was good, and it was exactly how they would want to be executing it. And I think once they got comfortable within the zone, they started scoring, and then Sydney were in trouble, and then they went back to a man-to-man, and one person cannot guard Jackson Cartwright, and I think that showed, and he was just putting the team on his shoulders and carrying them. And then there was some other good performances too. It wasn't just him. I mean, obviously Zylan Cheatham had a great game, and even though he was playing on one leg at the end, and Tom Abercrombie came in and gave them some real defensive punch when they needed it, and Isaiah Le'afa stepped up and came up with probably the game-winning steal, but also clinched it with a couple of back-to-back trays himself in the fourth quarter.
Because when you look at it at half-time, sorry, it was a 9-point deficit, but they're only shooting 20% from long range. They had 4 players who had made a field goal at half-time. And when we honestly sitting there thinking, hell, they're going to be able to do this in the second half. And if you were, what made you think that?
Yeah, it was funny because I was sitting there watching it with my son, and we were both saying they haven't played very well, and they're only down 9.
Right.
And they haven't made any shots. So if they can actually make a couple of shots and build a bit of pressure, Sydney's shown over the season that when the pressure comes on, they just don't execute well, and they become individuals. And the Breakers stepped up their defence and got some stops, and then made some shots at the other end. And once they see the ball going through the hoop, it's amazing what it does for your confidence. And their confidence grew, and then Sydney started tightening up and then not making their shots, and it just became really hard for Sydney. And as much as a home crowd can really help you, it can also suck the life out of you when they go dead quiet as well.
Well, it was that third quarter, 22-13, and that wiped the deficit out. So then going into the fourth quarter, and I think Sydney looked as though they were scratching their heads going, what the hell has happened here? Shouldn't we have put this game to bed? That's what it looked like to me.
That's exactly how it felt too. I mean, I think that's exactly right. They probably thought Breakers are down on manpower. Zylan Cheatham's on one leg. The one guy is really keeping them in this game. But over time, that starts wearing a bit thin and realising that you're not actually pulling away, and then the other team you're playing is not playing that well. So there were times where I was going, Breakers are not playing well, and I look at the scoreboard and they're up 1, and I'm like, how are they up 1 when they're not even playing that great? But they were stifling Sydney, and Sydney just had nothing. They had no combos that they were working on. It was just all individual brilliance that was keeping them in the game.
How much does it, you've been in desperate situations before, how much does that inspire you as well, the win or simply go home, season over?
Yeah, well, I always said Breakers are one of the informed teams coming into playoffs. No one in their right mind would have chose to play the Breakers because they're dangerous. They've got probably arguably one of the best players in the league, and Jackson Cartwright. They've got guys who have been there, like your Tom Abercrombies, who have been there before and won championships before and understand what's required at that level. And there's guys who are not scared of the moment in their team. Isaiah Le'afa's not scared of the moment, and Finn Delaney's not scared of the moment. These guys are ready to step up when their number's called. So they got a bunch of guys that have, again, ready to go and ready to step up at this time of the year.
NRL Vegas. Brad Walter on the ground for us. It's not the first time that the NRL has taken matches to the States, but it's a 5-year plan now to try and break into the US sports market. Or is it that, or is it just... It's just a fun place to go, to take the games over there, create a bit of hype and hoopla before the season proper starts. Brad Walter, NRL.com on the ground. Brad, Vegas, baby. Fabulous Las Vegas. You been there before?
I have, as a matter of fact, yeah, once or twice. It's a great city for adults.
Yeah, well, it's, fun city for adults, isn't it? And it's also now turning into the sporting capital of America. So after the Super Bowl, the next big event at that beautiful stadium is a couple of rugby league games, mate. Whoever would have thought?
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Like, rugby league's been trying to get a foothold into the US probably since the 1950s, or certainly it's been a dream, but of the game, and there's been so many aborted attempts, but this would be, I'd say, the most concerted and the best effort to date, and it's really exciting to be here and to just think that this this event that's been talked about and promoted and working at the NRL, I can tell you it's pretty much been the main topic of conversation since the grand final last year. So there's been a lot of prep and a lot of work gone into it, and the big day is just about here.
I saw they're giving 2-for-1 tickets away a couple of weeks ago, so I don't know whether they're going to give a lot of freebies of that, but are they expecting it to be absolutely full to the brim or not?
No, not full to the brim. So the stadium, Allegiant Stadium, holds 65,000, which was the crowd for the Super Bowl. At this stage, I don't even think there was never any belief that it would be they would hit that capacity, but they are definitely on track to double the previous record for a game in the United States, which was the Denver Test between New Zealand and England in 2018 that had a crowd of 19,300. Ticket sales are edging 40,000, and it's Wednesday here, so there's still a few days to go, and obviously there's been a real surge of interest in terms of ticket sales and that sort of thing probably in the last couple of weeks. So it's looking really good. It's looking really promising. And, this is year one of a 5-year investment by the NRL. So hopefully, the intent and the belief is that it will grow, and that, this is getting a toe in the water and getting on television in the US on Fox Sports 1, and hoping then that a lot more people start to sort of become aware of the game and follow it.
Brad, so does that mean that they're going to go back to Vegas year after year after year, or are they going to go somewhere else?
No, the plan is, as far as I know, the plan is to go to Vegas for 5 years. So I think there's a deal with the stadium and the local government to play there for 5 years. So, and each of the NRL teams at this stage will get a turn at playing there. So I think it'd be huge if the Warriors were to play here, because they would obviously bring a lot of New Zealand fans, but there are fans here from I know of a lot. There's a lot of fans flying in from the UK. There's fans just at the airport and on the flight, but at the airport, just in the immigration and customs hall, there's people in basically every NRL and rugby league jersey that you can imagine is here. So there's a real feeling that it's I suppose it's a little bit like Magic Round or something like that. There's fans are just coming from Australia, from England, and all over North America for the chance to watch a rugby league event and history in the making.
NRL.com's Brad Walter is with us. Did anyone ever suggest around the creative meetings of just, getting hold of Taylor Swift's management and throwing her a ticket, because she seems to attract a hell of a lot of attention everywhere she goes, and if she watched a game at NRL, mate, you'd probably sell it out.
Oh, I'm sure that's been discussed, and obviously the hard part would be, getting her here. But I think there's some hope that maybe her boyfriend, her partner, or his brother might come, the Kelsey brothers.
Well, that'd be a great publicity coup if that's the case. And that's what it's about. Let's be honest about it. That's what it's about. It's hype and hoopla, and anyone wants to prick that balloon. Well, you got to do something, which is why I really liked that little promotional video that Russell Crowe voiced, and he voiced it in that hell of a voice of his. But, mate, it was just rock and roll, wasn't it?
Mate, it's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? And he's a showman. He's a big name over here. He loves the game. He knows how to promote it, and I think he gets rugby league. The first time I came to the United States for any reason was actually for the 2008 Rabbitohs versus Leeds game, and Russell obviously organised that, was promoted that, pushed that, and he brought Dennis Rodman was there, and Greg Norman was there, Chrissy Everett, Lane Beachley, so there's some big names in the sporting world, and people that were well-known Australians, but people that were well-known in the United States, and they really helped to promote it. And I've got no doubt if the Rabbitohs had gone back the following year, the crowd, I think they got 12,000 in a 10,000 seat stadium. If they'd gone back, they would have played in a bigger stadium and a bigger venue. And obviously, just having his support and people like that getting behind the game. We've had Jordan Malata, the former Rabbitohs player who now plays for the plays in the NFL, and even the Rock, I think, has done some promotional work as well for it. So for the NRL as well. So it's it is like when those big names get behind the game, they obviously they make a different audience aware. So obviously Taylor Swift would be the dream, but how many corporations and companies and businesses and sports and whatever would be saying that right now?
News Hub Sport, people. Yesterday, big news. Not just for those of us who work in the media, but big news. That News Hub is shutting down, and that the owners of what we used to call TV3 have decided that it costs way too much to produce the news, and so they're not going to do it anymore. News Hub Sport. Now, again, I've got to reiterate, look, and in terms of the human cost of this, it really sucks. It really does. Of course, people lose their jobs. Very unsettling time, and a fair few won't be back in the industry. And it takes you to a bad place, the redundancy thing. And so my heart, my thoughts go out to everyone that is affected by this. But let's look critically at the product that News Hub Sport was offering. Is it going to be missed? Is it really going to be missed? You see, I don't believe that it is. No opinions, no editorials, no real takes on anything at all that make you go, Things that make you go, And that's the whole thing about sport. That's what I want about sport. When I look at a sports news website, that's what I want. I want to be able to read something, see something, go, oh, okay, I never thought of that, or something that I could argue about. In fact, I'd accuse News Hub Sport of the exact opposite. Their sports reporting, as I've often criticised via social media, has been formulaic, predictable, cheesy, boring, and so biased and heavily weighted towards a Labour government-style political narrative, especially around their presentation and coverage of women's sport. And to me, this was epitomised during the Women's Rugby World Cup a couple of years ago, where a report from Lucy Thompson, one of their journalists, ran a story about how the Black Ferns were now bigger and more popular in this country than the All Blacks. Just utter horse shite. Utter horse shite. And that, to me, summed up a lot of their coverage. And I had arguments over various social media forums with some of the people that I know there and know well. And one of them in particular, Andrew Gordy, their sports news presenter, used to come back to me and say, hey, we're just here to report what's said. No, you're not. You're journalists. You're a news organisation. What you're presenting is meant to be factual. And on that particular report, which was just gobsmackingly stupid and untrue, was a university professor who came up with some set of stats from somewhere, made them up probably, and this was reported as fact. And it's so disingenuous and so wrong. So that was a massive complaint for me. Another one was about the fawning, sycophantic coverage of the football Ferns last year during the Women's World Cup and the build-up to it, yet never a mention of their appalling win-loss record or their inability to score a goal. All of that was left out. Their refusal to criticise anything at all or analyse anything at all about women's sport, which I've always maintained is patronising. And any female athletes that you ever talk to, they want the analysis, the criticism, the discussion like the men get, because anything else is patronising. You're treating them differently. They don't want to be treated differently. They're athletes. They want to be treated like athletes. So why don't you theorise, analyse, criticise, dissect like the men? Last year in France at the Rugby World Cup, myself and Lachlan, we got it firsthand. There was a couple of News Hub people over there. And most nights, the angles that they were running were, in fact, answers to questions that we had asked at press conferences. The inability to think outside the square, the inability to do anything other than rewrite a press release and present it as news. And I've got to say, there's an arrogance and a contempt and an attitude that was born of what? And I noticed this a lot at these press conferences, watching, especially the television reporters. What, you're on TV and so you think you're important, you think you're famous? How about just presenting coverage that is actually accurate for a start, that is factual for a start, and then give us something to think about as well? There are some really good people that work at News Hub Sport, and they're going to survive and get jobs. There are some that won't and don't deserve to. That is life in a capitalist market system. It'll sort, the wheat from the chaff. It is a brutal market and a brutal industry in which we work. And it's happened to me a couple of times already, been made redundant. It sucks. And it certainly tests you out as a person, and you find out a hell of a lot about yourself and who your friends are. I don't like seeing anyone made redundant or lose their jobs. But if I have to be honest, the coverage of their sport won't be missed because mostly it didn't offer anything other than predictable, lame, PR schmuck coverage. And a lot of it was completely politically motivated, biased, unjustified BS. And that's the truth. Jason Costo Costigan. Look, if you've loved your league and you've been a supporter or a follower in this country, you'll remember this guy's voice. Jason called the Warriors on Sky Sport for a decade or more. Last year, he did his 1 through 17 for us. Does it again. Where are the Warriors going to finish up exactly as far as the NRL is concerned this year, and why? And who's going to win the minor premiership? Jason's top 8 coming. We have done 9 through 17 in this order. Sharks, Dolphins, Eels, Titans, Manly, Dogs, Raiders, Tigers, and Dragons. The top 8, 1 through 8. And again, just a reminder, last year, this is your 1 through 8, was Cowboys, Bunnies, Storm, Panthers, Roosters, Sharks, Eels, and Dogs. You got 4 out of that 8. So, number 8 is who?
The Warriors. Look, I think they could make the top 4. I'm not saying they can't make the top 4, but they're no guarantee to make the 8. AFB on a farewell tour, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on a comeback tour, and Sean Johnson, most likely, you'd have to think, playing his final season of big-time rugby league. If there's a window open for the Warriors to win a premiership or to do something special, it could well be 2024. But a lot of people are tipping them in the top 4. I'm not trying to make fun of those people. I can understand why they have put them in the top 4. But the Warriors, for me, I think anything but the finals. If they don't make the finals, they've had a pretty ordinary season. Let's not sugarcoat it. I think they're going to finish in 8th position, middle of the road, but I expect them to play finals footy.
Who's at 7?
Well, if Ponga stays fit and doesn't have to sit out games because of compulsory stand down because of the concussion rules of today, and this is a big thing in the game today. When we used to make predictions, we didn't have to have these variables. We've got so many variables now. Before, we used to just check the weather forecast,
right.
and especially if Canterbury were playing with Daryl Halligan. But when it comes to the Newcastle Knights, Ponga, he's obviously the main man, but again, he can't do it alone. They had a trial match in Fiji. Don't read anything into the trials. Brisbane won the competition, whoopee-doo. But I think Newcastle, if they keep their players healthy, they're a very difficult team to play at home. My only concern, or caveat, if that's the word here with Newcastle, they came home with a wet sail last year, but they beat some Mickey Mouse opposition along the way. That was interesting in itself. They need to beat the good teams to make the finals. I think they can, but Ponga needs to play well and he needs some help. I'm tipping Newcastle at 7.
Top 6, home semi-finalists, if that's the case. All right, who gets 6?
Well, I think one of the great signings for 2024 is Spencer Leniu coming to the Bondi Junction. You know, Jared Weber-Hargreaves heading off to the UK at the end of the season. He's not starting the season as he'd like because of suspension, hence he's not playing in Vegas. But Leniu coming in, he's a great foil for Lindsay Collins. It gives Trent Robinson great rotation. They've extended the career with a contract extension for Luke Keary. His combination with Walker is deadly. People saying Tedesco's washed up. I'm not convinced. And, of course, you've got the revolving door with the rugby people. You know who I'm talking about there. Manu comes to mind. I can't believe that he's going. But, you know, at the end of the day, that's his prerogative. He's won premierships. He's the superstar of our game. The Roosters surely will play finals football. I'm tipping them at number 6.
Number 5.
Well, I reckon the Rabbitohs can make 5. I reckon the Rabbitohs will play finals football. Disappointing last year, I've got to say. And Jason Demetrio will be in Vegas as we speak, looking to start on a winning note. Look, they've got a terrific side. When you look at their side, the South Sydney team, so many gun players across the park, so much strike power. The forward pack alone, when you look at Kolomatangi and Cam Murray, Damien Cook, Totola up front, there's plenty of grunt. Don't forget they got players off the bench like Tommy Burgess and Moali. These are players that have played international football for some time now. So expect South Sydney to go deep, I believe, in 24. And I'm tipping the Rabbits at 5.
Number 4 is who?
Well, I'm tipping the Cowboys here, and I tipped them big things last year from them, and they were absolute very big disappointments. But what I do like is that Todd Payton has basically put all his players on notice. When you sack the captain, when you actually sack the chief executive, if you like, of the company, all of a sudden the staff look around and think, what happened here? You know what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about Tamalolo. He's had the captaincy taken off him, and he's been supplanted in that regard by Reuben Cotter and Tom Dearden, both from my hometown. A great success story, a great Cinderella story for the Cowboys in terms of producing homegrown talent. I think the Cowboys will do well this year, and I think Tamalolo will be a better player, not having that responsibility. And so I think they'll finish top 4 in number 4.
1, 2, and 3 then with the Panthers, Broncos, and Storm last year. That's the 3 teams you got left. What order did they finish?
Well, everyone's writing off the Panthers, and look, they were close but no cigar in the World Club Challenge, and the refereeing of Liam Moore and the video refereeing in that game left a lot to be desired. There's been a lot of controversy and a lot said. And there was a fair bit of rust for Penrith. Let's not kid ourselves. They went all that way to the north of England, playing in front of, 24,000 pie eaters. That's what the Wigan Club sometimes refer to their own supporters, or at least the opposition. But Penrith come back. There was no shame in getting beaten by the Super League champions, but write them off at your own peril. They won 3 in a row. They were down for the count in the grand final. That try, that winning play, that heroic work by Cleary, the player, as well as the master coaching work of his father, that this is going to be talked about for a long time. They will not be a pushover. They keep losing players because of the salary cap. I'll say it again, Marty. Write them off at your own peril. I'm tipping them at number 3.
Okay, so that's 1 and 2, and I'm picking you got the Broncos at 1 and Storm at 2.
You got it in 1. Melbourne Storm, I think, in Craig Bellamy's final year, it's been an amazing story. I've said this before in your program. I can remember interviewing him at Red Hill as assistant coach of the Broncos. He served a very long apprenticeship. He started his coaching career in Wagga Wagga. That's Aboriginal for City of Crows. It's the place in the Riverina that I spent some time reading the news back in the late 1990s. And it's been a great story for Craig Bellamy. And there's got a bit of Cinderella feel about it if he can go all the way to perhaps win another premiership. I think Ryan Pappenhausen will be a big story this year. Many other players who've had to suffer those injury setbacks, they would have given the game away, Marty. But Pappenhausen keeps fighting. He's an amazing talent. I think Melbourne with Harry Grant, there's talk that Harry Grant could win the Dally M. If he wins the Dally M, Melbourne are up to their eyeballs in terms of winning another premiership. I've got them at number 2. And at the top of the pile, as I predicted with my crystal ball, the Broncos, so perilously close to planting the flag on top of the mountain last year. And then a Panther called Cleary pushed them over the cliff. It was unfortunate for Broncos supporters, but I think Kevin Walters can build something special here at Red Hill, and there's massive expectations north of the River Tweed in 2024.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.